Disclaimer. The majority of footage used in today's video is fan-made projects due to the lack of original material. I've linked all of these talented people below. Please check them out after the video. Now, enjoy. Hey folks, how's your day going as a Zelda fan? I bet you enjoy having the ability to play whichever games you personally own from this fantastic adventure series whenever you like. But you know what may boil your blood? Okay, maybe that's a bit dramatic, but you want to know something interesting about that fantastic series of many games? Well, there is actually one, well actually two in a way, but that's another story, that you'll never be able to play. At least not officially. And one of those games you'd never be able to play goes by the name of Ura Zelda. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may not heard of it. It's been around the internet for years and has been covered by a good few creators, but recently my good friend Parker suggested that I do a video of my own on the story and share it with my audience, but also provide my thoughts and such on the game. And to try and set it apart from the other videos on it, I'm going to try and make this a sort of simple story on it, because there is a lot to it, and I'm going to give the sort of simple version for my eyes, but I will also link more in-depth stories below. Regardless, by the end of this video, you'll definitely know a lot more about this infamous Zelda game, which is an important part of Zelda history. So pay attention, it'll be on the test. And again, thanks to my friend Parker, who also moderates on my Discord server, link below, for the idea. It's a nice break from theories and the game we won't name, also because we can't name it. Breath of the Wild 2. I can't get enough of that game. Anyway, enough of that for today. Stick around because this is a story you won't want to miss out on. Today, we're talking about the forbidden Zelda game that you're unable to play. Ever. Ura Zelda. But before we get into that, be sure to go and grab yourself a snack or drink and send them in to get featured right here. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, it really helps the channel out, and let's get into this one. To begin, let's summarise what Ura Zelda was, then we'll get into what happened to it, and ask the big question of if we could ever see it, by some miracle. Ura Zelda, in simple terms, was a DLC of sorts that was planned to be an expansion to Ocarina of Time, but this was back in the 90s. How could DLC be possible? Well, it was going to be done through a nifty piece of kit called the Nintendo 64 DD. Basically an add-on for your Nintendo 64 to read floppy disks. If I have to explain what a floppy disk is, then get out. Just kidding, I'm not that old, but I don't know what they are. Anyway, this add-on was a bit of a flop. Get it? Floppy disk. Now, sometimes my wording can be difficult to get my points across. I'm not the best writer, so to sum this part up, I am going to directly read from a section of a Zeldapedia article on the game, which I used to help research this video. It reads, during the early stages of development, two significantly different Ocarina of Time expansions were planned for the 64DD. One titled Ura Zelda, which would include alternate and more difficult dungeons, such as the Unicorn Fountain, and new enemies, while the other, Zelda Gaiden, would include a different overworld and entirely new adventure. While Zelda Gaiden would eventually evolve into The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, Ura Zelda was never released on the Nintendo 64 or the 64DD as a standalone game. Ura Zelda was actually a patch for Ocarina of Time. The 64DD version was designed so that the original Ocarina of Time cartridge could be plugged into the main Nintendo 64 console, while the Ura Zelda expansion disc would be plugged into the 64DD that sat underneath the console. Upon the insertion of the Ura Zelda expansion disc, the Ocarina of Time title screen would change slightly, adding a disc icon to the right of the logo. The size of this patch was supposedly about 32 to 64 megabytes, and due to smaller maximum size of the Nintendo 64 cartridges, the game could not otherwise be released on a cartridge. End quote. So yeah, Ura Zelda was an expansion to Ocarina of Time, but more to the size of a small game by the sounds of things. Over the years, there has been a few attempts here and there to restore the project, and I'll be playing some footage of that. All credits linked below, obviously. And whilst they do look pretty good for fan recreations, they aren't the Ura Zelda. It does show the love and dedication this fanbase has, which I personally adore and love. The part that hurts the most about all of this is that it looked like a really promising piece of work from Nintendo, but we're never gonna get it most likely. We can watch some footage from the fan work and their interpretation of the DLC based on what was known and kinda some of their own judgment, I guess? Honestly, it looks incredibly exciting. At the time, Ocarina of Time was one of the biggest games, being a revolutionary game for 3D games. It had the world's attention, and this DLC would have only added to that. I mean, just look at some of the fan work. We see the so-called Unicorn Fountain in one shot, and that alone makes me happy. Of course, a lot of this footage is just slightly modified Ocarina of Time, but the bulk of the expansion would have been the dungeons and enemies. Oh, and of course the storyline, if there was one. In the end, we got the Master Quest, which which has similar ideas to Ura Zelda, but over the years, the general consensus is that the Master Quest is nothing like what Ura Zelda would have been. Sad story, bro. Sad story. And that's really Ura Zelda, in simple terms. There are more fine details to this story, but documentary videos aren't quite my style. My aim here was to provide the story in the simplest way possible, without having to go through super long, intricate details. Not to bash that style of video, I actually love them personally, I just don't have the mental capacity for long videos, and I feel this could be helpful. I'm just not great at making super long videos. I prefer to try and compact mine and stick to the key details. Unless it's a theory or something, then I'll make a super long video. I'm rambling. All video styles are valid and awesome. This is just my simple take on it. There's been a lot of content for this lost game discovered over the years, and down below in the description I'll leave links to a lot of this. It ranges from villages to storylines and all that sort of stuff. The only reason I'm not covering it here is because it isn't all my discovery really, I'm just talking about it, and those linked below can talk about it much better than me. Now for the big question I'm sure many of you have thought of. Could we ever see it? Well, if we could currently, that would contradict my title of the Forbidden Zelda Game or the Zelda game you'll never be able to play. The short answer, currently, no. But there have been fans as mentioned, and I believe there still are fans working on trying to make their own version of it based on what we know. But the likelihood is that we'll never get to see this actual expansion. It would be incredibly cool if we got a public fan remake one day, but it would probably be sniped down by Nintendo instantly. The only possible way for it to actually happen would be if in a future re-release or remake of Ocarina of Time, Nintendo decided to finish it up and include it. But let's be honest, the chances of that are slim to none. If Ura Zelda is ever released, bring this video back up to me and I'll make a reaction / remake going over the expansion. But currently, I'd still consider it the Zelda game that you'll never be able to play. A lost piece of history, Ura Zelda. Oh, and real quick before wrapping up, I recently appeared on a friend of mine, Kat Bergerson's channel, for an episode of his Dungeon Design and Zelda series. It's a fantastic episode, and series as a whole to be honest, that you should definitely check out. Link below. Thanks a ton for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing for more fabulous Zelda content. If you haven't already, be sure to hop in our Discord server through the link below. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram to keep up to date, and as always, a huge special thank you goes out to all of my supporters across Patreon and YouTube. If you'd like to join them and get yourself a shout out upon joining and your name at the end of every video, then consider supporting. Again, thanks for watching, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.